fantastic guest with us. That's why I love being a part of Believe. We are joined by our boy Rami, host of a In-Flight Snack, a New York Jets podcast on Believe. So shout out to you for joining us. How is it going, Rami?
It's been better, I could say that, but
Yes.
has it really as a Jets fan? It hasn't really. So I'm doing well. I can't complain. It's just another, season, another slap in the face. We're used to this already, and I appreciate you guys for having me. And yes, incredible to be part of the Believe family this year. And honestly, it's been like that every single week. I get another message from someone else in the Believe network saying, "Hey, let's do this together. Let's do that." And it's been awesome to be a part of that.
So I have to ask you one question, man, and you've probably answered this about 100 times so far this season. How does it go from trading for Aaron Rodgers, hard knocks, Super Bowl expectations, to now being in the situation where you are right now?
Honestly, and this is the realization I came to, I think, about a week and a half ago, where I was like, I wish they lost that game that Rodgers went out,
Mm.
because we knew when Rodgers went out, the season was over. But the false hope from that point, and by the way, everyone talks about how it was so terrible you didn't bring in a backup quarterback to back up Rodgers. Zach Wilson could have backed up Aaron Rodgers if Rodgers had to miss a game, two, maybe even three, right? At the end of the day, they were 4-3 with Zach Wilson. Not because of him, but he didn't lose them those games.
Hmm.
And I think the mistake happens once he went out. But I think the Jets kind of took this approach of, well, Aaron Rodgers is out. I guess we'll be back at it next year. And while it sucks that was kind of their approach, now I kind of get it, because I wish, instead of getting the false hope like they always do to us, and then just to get punched in the nuts at the end of it, I mean, I wish they just kind of at the beginning were like, yeah, this team is not going to be where we want it to be. This was built around Rodgers, and they just imploded from day one. But that didn't happen, and now the mess, it just snowballs, seems to get worse and worse by the day. And New York media is crazy, and I work in it. I live it. I listen to
Hmm.
it. I'm a part of it, and it's just, I'm seeing it from all angles now. And to answer your original question, I mean, we're here, right? Aaron Rodgers is my favorite quarterback ever. And that was long before he was on the Jets. And so to get him here and be like, this is actually our guy. And my father, who's a longtime Jet fan, longer than me, right, kept warning me, don't buy in, don't get hyped. And we were trying. That's how I started the podcast, was we're trying not to get too hyped about this. But something about the combination of it being Aaron and the hard knocks and so many different things, it was like they pulled you in to the point where you were so hyped, so excited. And I was just watching today, actually, somebody posted on Twitter, someone reposted a video from the first game, and Aaron Rodgers does his cadence, hands the ball off to Breece Hall. They gain like 15 yards on the first play of the season. First play from scrimmage. I think it was actually more, like 26 yards on the first play of scrimmage on a handoff to the left side by Breece Hall. And the place is going nuts. This is one play in, and we didn't know that 3 plays later he'd be getting hurt. But I'm like, to think where we were then, and I was at CBS Sports Network when the injury happened, and I just froze. I stood there, and I knew right away. And I knew the season was over, but watching it play out as it did is so much worse than I could have ever imagined. So yeah, we were hyped. We bought in. I tried to temper my expectations. I didn't. I couldn't, and I paid big for it.
Damn.
That's tough, man. That's absolutely tough. Look, the last 2 years down here in H Town, it's been rough for football. It's been absolutely rough. I mean, the sentiments of the season's over, especially when it's, oh, well, we hired David Coley. And then it's, oh, well, we hired Lovey Smith. So now to have a refresh button in D'Amico Ryans and actually play relevant football and be welcomed back into the group of 32 feels great to be a Texan fan again. We play the Jets this Sunday. We had some news that came earlier today that the Houston Texans picked up Adrian Amos or Amos. I don't know how to pronounce the last name. Maybe you do. But y'all waived them. We picked them up. What can you tell Texans fans about them?
It was an interesting waiving by the Jets. I know they have depth at the safety position, and it paid off, right? Ashton Davis made really the only big play of the Jets game against the Falcons when he came in for Amos at safety. So I understand. I think it was just a numbers move for the Jets. They're trying to get a look at a lot of the younger guys, and Amos obviously a veteran. So it makes sense. But it also, this is what good organizations do. And congrats, you guys are a good organization now, because whatever turnover happened like that, I mean, going from Deshaun Watson and his situation to getting him out of town and winning that trade in the way you did, to now it seems like you have the right man in the head coach. And there's been mistakes there, I know, but he's a rookie head coach. There are going to be some mistakes. And to go from him, yeah, the thumbs up. It does that. It's Apple.
I
By
told
the way,
you, Harley. I told you.
So sorry to go on a side tangent here, but yesterday, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Chris Mad Dog Russo, who used to be on WFAN. Now he's on ESPN. Yeah. He's on MLB Network. So if you do a peace sign also like this, I don't know if it's going to do it. There it is. The balloons go off. And he did it on ESPN, and the balloons, he was yelling about something, like he was angry about something. And in the middle of his rant, the balloons start going off on ESPN. It's hilarious. But I don't know. It's something glitchy with the iPhone or the Apple, not iPhone, but Apple FaceTime camera. Anyway, I was talking about not the Astros. You guys wearing Astros stuff, but the Texans organization. So, yeah. So the Texans organization, really good. I think there have been some mistakes, like I said, by D'Amico Ryans, but I think what a good organization does is, hey, this is a guy who's a veteran in the league. Even if he's not going to come in here and play meaningful snaps for us this week, he can tell us what the other team is trying to do. Mm-hmm. We know how good the Jets defense has been, and they've broken at times because of the offense letting them down so much. So I think there are 2 games where it's been like they kind of broke, but this defense is legit. And I think, it's a good job by the Texans. And of course, they have an incredible rookie quarterback. Obviously, the rookie receiver just went down. It sucks. I think it's a great organizational move, though, to bring in a guy from the other side and just kind of help you out in practice, even if he doesn't play, like I said, meaningful snaps this week. But he's the type of guy who's a veteran, probably can plug and play at safety and see what happens.
I want to ask you about Aaron Rodgers, man, because the last couple of weeks is this guy coming back? Is he not coming back? He's walking without a boot. He's at practice right now. He is defying what we've seen from a medical standpoint, right? But how do you feel about Aaron Rodgers trying to come back? And do you think at one point we do see him, or does he wait till next year?
I think today he kind of said on McAfee that the goal was the 24th. That was his goal from the get-go. And it seems the goal is pretty much dead, because it was going to rely on the Jets being relevant. Now, the report by Ian Rappaport on Sunday is concerning to me. The report was that if Rodgers, even if he's not going to come back because the Jets are dead, he would be the emergency third quarterback, so he could put the uniform on again and feel like he did overcome and feel like he was triumphant in his pursuit to come back faster than anyone in history. And ultimately, I think that would be a victory for him. Why I say it's a mistake potentially, because knowing the Jets' history, both quarterbacks will get hurt and Rodgers will have to come in a meaningless game. That would be the worst case scenario, of course. But that said, I do think for him, he had a motivation. There's nothing wrong with a guy being extra motivated, no matter what the motivation is. And I think the young guys can learn from it. I do think he put that to rest today, saying pretty much, if they're dead, if they're out of the playoffs, one more loss, whether it's this week or next week against the Dolphins, I don't think we see him again this year.
We got a meeting between 2 former guys that were on the same coaching staff in San Francisco, being Robert Saleh and D'Amico Ryans. Hell, they were all the way back here in Houston when Saleh was a coach and D'Amico Ryans was a player. Hey, man, what can you tell us about Saleh and the matchup between him and D'Amico Ryans? And fans keep telling me he's going to know D'Amico. He's going to know the offense. Well, D'Amico was with Saleh, so wouldn't he also know what's going on? Muddle the confusion.
I think it's interesting with that type of thing. We've seen it now a few years with Saleh, obviously, and LaFleur in Green Bay. We've seen it with Saleh and obviously in Miami with Mike McDaniel. So there's been kind of this thing where these coordinators or former coordinators who are all together with the Shanahan system, whether it was Washington and now in San Francisco, they're all over the place, right? And most of them outside of Robert Saleh are having success. Now, I think Robert Saleh hasn't gotten a fair shake just because he hasn't had a quarterback. It's been 3 years and he hasn't had a quarterback. But That said, if you're looking at the matchup, the Jets have been an undisciplined mess for most of this year. I think D'Amico, like I said, has made some rookie mistakes as a head coach, but I think he is on his way, and he's shocking me. I mean, I was looking at D'Amico Ryans as, sure, you could be a great football player. We saw it last year. Jeff Saturday came in. He's a great football player. Doesn't mean you're going to be a great head coach. He's proven me wrong, right? He's come in, and it looks like he might actually be a really good head coach. And sometimes the players respond to that even better. I don't know what to make of Robert Saleh. I don't know if he's a good coach. I think it's sad to say that in year 3, we truly don't have the answer, but it's unfortunately the case. And the one thing we do know is that this team has been undisciplined. So, and when you talk about the Jets knowing or their defense having an advantage, look, the defense is always going to have an advantage against a rookie quarterback. But when a guy like CJ is so special, it takes away that. I mean, look, I do think the thing is what's beaten the Jets this year is staying disciplined, staying patient, not taking the big plays, almost playing boring ass football for 4 quarters. Just let the Jets beat themselves. Can a rookie head coach and a rookie quarterback do that? Will they stay disciplined enough to say, we're going to hand the ball off, we're going to throw it underneath, we're not going to take risks, we're not going to, they threw it twice at Sauce Gardner last week with Desmond Ridder, twice the whole game. That's it. They're not trying to beat Sauce Gardner. They're not trying to beat DJ Reed. They're waiting for that mistake to happen and just slowly, methodically move the ball downfield. They scored 13 points, the Falcons. It's not like they put up a ton of points on the Jets. 5 of those 13 came on short fields, right? So again, this isn't like rocket science here. Or sorry, 10 of the 13 came on short fields. This is not rocket science here. This is just if CJ and D'Amico can be patient enough, I think the Texans have a great chance in this game at beating this Jets defense. And if they can't, if they get impatient and they try and make big plays, you're basically letting the Jets defense make plays. And that's really the only side of the ball that you have to worry about if you're the Texans, because the Jets offense isn't doing anything. We don't even know what the starting quarterback's going to be.
So Houston Texan offensive line against this game on Sunday, 5 sacks allowed. Yeah. And what could you tell us about this New York Jets defensive line? How vicious are they? We know it's pretty good. You have one of the best young defensive tackles in the NFL over there. But what can you tell us about this Jets D-line?
I want to say this not only because he came on our show and now he's a friend of our program. He's a friend of the Believe Network, but he's also there's been so many things going around about this guy this year that I think are not true. And this defense, not just the defensive line, this defense starts and ends with Quinnen Williams. Quinnen Williams is a top 3 defensive player in the league. And as far as defensive tackles and dominant defensive tackles go, interior defensive lineman, it's him, it's Chris Jones, it's Aaron Donald. That's it. There's nobody else from the interior defensive linemen that are at that level. He has 3 guys every single play of and look, sometimes it doesn't show up because it's not showing up in the stats this year. He doesn't have a ton of sacks this year. I went to the games. I go to the games, and I'm still undecided about Sunday. I really want to see CJ in person. I'm a season ticket holder, so it's not like I don't have the ticket. The question is, do I want to sit through another Jets terrible loss? I just ate the tickets last week. I couldn't even give them away last week, the Falcons game. So I tried, trust me, but it was raining. Nobody wanted to go see the Falcons play the Jets, and they were right. There was only one game in the NFL that was worse than that game, and that was the 6-0 game up in New England, right? So, again, I've watched Quinnen Williams on every snap, and what he does to disrupt a defense, the timing. When there's a screenplay, he knows how to jump out. He is one of the smartest, hardest working guys. He does not care about the stats at all. He just wants to win. That was the sentiment he echoed again and again and again when he came on our show. We asked him a ton of questions. We asked him about his brother, Quincy, who's playing so well. We asked him about CJ. We asked him about bringing Aaron Rodgers. He doesn't care about any of this stuff. He just wants to win. We asked him about the sacks. We asked him about the big contract he just signed. Nothing. He just wants to win. So he is so happy for his teammates to go make the plays. Like, look at that play in the safety, the one play that I talked about with Ashton Davis, right? So Quinnen shoves 3 guys into the backfield. I've never seen a guy on a handoff be so far back in their own end zone when the safety happened. He was like a good 8 yards deep in the end zone because Quinnen just shoves him all the way back. And then Ashton Davis comes in and makes the tackle. And Quinnen's looking to go celebrate with Ashton because he's like, I didn't do anything, but he did. That play doesn't happen if you don't get 3 guys in the lap of the running back right from just blowing up the play from the start. The year that Bryce Huff and Jermaine Johnson and all these guys are having is because of how good Quinnen Williams has been. So they rotate all the defensive linemen, whether it's Clemens, whether it's Jefferson, Tenzel Smart. All these guys have been awesome for the Jets, but the one guy who makes it all happen for them is Quinnen Williams, and it continues to be that way. And I can't say enough about Quinnen Williams. If that's a place where if they're going to disrupt the timing, like I said, you're going to want to run the ball as much as you can. You're going to want to run quick play action stuff. You're not going to want to sit in the pocket and wait for slow developing plays because Quinnen Williams is going to get back there, and you don't want him chasing around or really letting other guys chase CJ around all day.
Not to stir away from the game, but you have mentioned that some feels like the underlying tones of maybe some frustration with Robert Saleh at coach. And, not to stir away from the game, like I said earlier, but is there any sentiment that many people across our fan base have looked at a few of your players, and there's 31 other teams that have looked at Quinnen Williams and Garrett Wilson and some of their frustrations? We've heard Garrett Wilson just a few weeks ago voice his frustrations with New York Jets. Is there any chance that maybe, I don't know, these guys get so fed up that they don't want to be there no more? Or is it maybe just a head coaching change and, redial in everybody? Or maybe it's no head coaching change. What do you got on the situation?
Again, I feel bad to put this all on Rodgers. On Saleh. How could you put it all on him? But it's at the same time, you're hearing it in the media. You're hearing players. That's part of the undiscipline is players going out and talking in the media, players going out on Twitter and tweeting things about this team. It's not good. It's not what you want from a professional organization. And Aaron Rodgers talked about it again on McAfee today, saying we have to tighten it up. We have to find out who around here, and the next 5 weeks are going to make a big difference. I know the season might be lost and they're out of it. You lost 6 in a row to end the year last year. You can't do the same thing this year. You have to, even if it hurts your draft status or whatever it is, you have to get a couple of wins or at least play well enough and just clean some things up just to give me hope for next year. Otherwise, how do you keep Robert Saleh around? How do you keep a guy who's been here for this long and still we're seeing some of the same mistakes repeat themselves in year 3? I know he hasn't had a fair chance. I know he's had the quarterback situation that's been awful. But again, I think everything changes when Aaron comes back. To answer your question about what could happen going into next year, you have a Hall of Fame quarterback. Everything changes. The offense looks better. There's more accountability across the board because there's somebody holding you accountable. Look, there's a lot of things that are different, I believe, if Aaron Rodgers is here, and would have been different this year if Aaron Rodgers is here. This is not a team that would be 4-8 if Aaron Rodgers is here. I'll tell you that right now. The record would probably be reversed. It would probably be 8-4. I'm not saying they would have been 10-2, but to think that they couldn't have been 7-5, 8-4 with Aaron Rodgers here, especially when you look at some of the games and how they lost them, and they could have easily been wins. Yeah, I think sometimes that's all the difference you need is Rodgers. But also, I think, if they lose out or win one more game the rest of the year and it really gets messy, I don't see how you can bring Robert Saleh back.
How do you think he handled the whole Zach Wilson situation? Because everyone gave up on him early, but it was Robert Saleh really, putting it all in for the guy. Just don't worry about it. Just keep on playing. When everyone else was saying, dude, this dude is not the answer. Why do you continue to defend him? And then one of our commenters has a question: is the turf at MetLife a real concern?
I want to answer the second question first, and I'll get to Zach Wilson. Yes, I think the answer is yes. It is a real concern. Again, I don't know. I talked to Bilal. Obviously, Bilal said he loves playing at MetLife Stadium. But that's my co-host Bilal Powell. He played for the Jets for 9 years. So, I mean, how could it not be, right? This game, especially when it's wet. How many injuries were there again against the Falcons? So, yeah, I think there's a real concern there. They, meaning John Mara and also John Mara, Steve Tisch, the owners of the Giants and the Jets, obviously, and the Johnsons, don't seem to want to change it. They just changed it this year. It hasn't been better this year. Obviously, starting with Rodgers, Daniel Jones didn't get hurt there, but there's been injuries across the board for both teams. And then a lot of visiting players, especially, like I said, in a game when it's wet against the Falcons on Sunday. So I don't see how you can possibly say it's not a concern when clearly evidence shows it is a concern. And I don't think there's enough people saying otherwise. So I'm not sure. They just changed it. I don't think they'll change it again. I know they'd love probably real grass there, but who knows what's going to happen. Ultimately, the Jets can get out of their stadium contract, I think, next year. And that would be a great time to maybe move somewhere else, maybe go play the new complex that Steve Cohen is building out there. There's going to be a soccer field. There's going to be a whole gambling scene where the Mets play. So maybe that's the type of thing that the Jets try and build something there. I don't know, but I think you try and get out of that MetLife Stadium contract. As far as Zach Wilson, he handled it as poor as you can, Robert Saleh, because look, last year you handled it poorly. You had everyone in the room wearing Mike effing White t-shirts while this guy's the starting quarterback, right? So that's bad. But to think you get a second chance at it, no one thought Robert Saleh was going to have to deal with Zach Wilson ever again, including Robert Saleh. He's like, I have Aaron Rodgers. This doesn't matter. I don't have to worry about handling Zach Wilson ever again. My life is made. And then 4 plays in, you have to handle Zach Wilson again. Like I said, it was a bad situation for him to be in. They should have gone and gotten a backup. I don't think before the season. I do think you could have survived a couple of games with Zach Wilson as the backup. But once Rodgers went down, they should have gotten a real backup for sure. And at that point, they didn't, and Robert Saleh didn't handle it well at all. Robert Saleh did the exact same thing he did last year. And you talk about him saying that he's confident in him. Well, I think when Zach Wilson's play really went from like pretty bad to awful was when that comment came out on the Michael Kay show. Obviously, the Yankees play-by-play announcer. He obviously works for ESPN as well, and on the radio. And when he was talking about Zach Wilson, he said, I plead the fifth, like to what's, that's crazy. When he asked about his confidence in Zach Wilson and he said, I plead the fifth, that means it's not his decision and he doesn't want to start Zach Wilson. And all of a sudden the confidence in Zach Wilson is totally out the window. So everything you're saying in the press conference, even though those are positive things, obviously you don't truly feel that way, or you wouldn't be pleading the fifth when talking about him publicly. So 2 years in a row, if you want to look at more things that speak negatively for Robert Saleh, that's 2 more things that how could you look at those things and say Robert Saleh is this great head coach? If anything, he's shown otherwise.
I mean, Zach Wilson has said he reported reluctant to play this Sunday against the Houston Texans. Man, who's playing at the quarterback position? Is it Brett Ripien? Y'all just picked him up from the practice squad. Hell, I mean, he looked half decent with the Rams. Obviously, the Rams don't have Nathaniel Hackett as their play caller. How has Hackett that'll be the second question. How has Hackett been for y'all? Because he was just absolutely abysmal in Denver.
It's funny. So about who's starting this week, your guess is as good as mine. The report about Zach was walked back, and then Tim Boyle gets cut. I don't know if Tim Boyle was the one who reported that, because Aaron Rodgers then talks about cleaning things up and tightening things up. So I don't know if that's who reported it. I have no idea, but they contradicted. They came back and they said, no, Zach never said that. Zach came to Robert Saleh's office and said, no, I do want to play. I don't think they'll go back to Zach just yet, although maybe they should. Brett Ripien, I think he has as good a chance to start as anyone else. If I had to guess, it would probably be Trevor Siemian. Trevor Siemian really didn't get a fair shake last week, right? You're coming in down 14-0 cold, or whatever it was, down a touchdown cold. You have, hey, it's the fourth quarter. You have 3 drives to try and bring us back when everyone knows you have to throw. And this is a terrible situation to be in. And as far as Nate Hackett, I mean, Saleh basically put all the blame on Tim Boyle on Sunday. After the game, they asked him, how do you think Nate Hackett was today? And he's like, well, when you watch the All-22, you'll know the answer. And if you watch the All-22, there were guys open all over the place, wide open all over the field. They basically, the Falcons put 7-8 guys in the box every time. And we're like, all right, we're going to go one-on-one with all your wide receivers, beat us. And guess what? The Jets receivers beat them all day long. Garrett Wilson was running wide open all over the place, and they had no one to get him the ball. In fact, so many of the times, Tim Boyle didn't even look that way. They didn't even throw it where he had Garrett Wilson. All they needed was 1 touchdown. They lost by 5. All they needed was 1 touchdown to win the game, right? And he had probably 3 chances at a wide open Garrett Wilson downfield and never even threw it. You convert one of those and the Jets will win the game. That's crazy. So I don't think Hackett's been great. I don't think he's completely like blameless here. You have to blame him somewhat. He hasn't been awesome, but at the same time, I also I see that comment. That's funny. Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, I feel your guys' pain because, and again, Texans fans before this year can feel what Jets fans are going through this year. But really, what I've gone through. Do you know this stat? Here's a stat for you. The last Jets quarterback to start and complete and play every game of a season was Geno Smith in 2013. Wow. Like, how insane is that? 10 years. That's a decade. We haven't had one quarterback start and complete every game. Isn't that nuts?
Wow.
Like,
God gives his toughest battles to his toughest soldiers,
crazy.
man.
And look, like, you know, you guys go from obviously one of the best quarterbacks in Deshaun Watson to all the stuff that happens with him to how you've recovered from that to now have CJ. And I mean, again, you guys have to be thanking your lucky stars every night that some Carolina Panthers whoever's running that show are a bunch of idiots apparently, because like, I don't know, Bryce could still be good. I don't want to judge him after, you know, in a bad spot, 10 games, rookie year, whatever, but he's not CJ Stroud. I'll tell you that much. CJ is special. I mean, Bilal was sending me stuff from his like 2-3 games in, even before you guys started winning a bunch of games. Bilal sending me stuff like, check this kid out. This kid knows what he's talking about. He was sending me post-game press conferences and different plays and coaches clips and stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, yeah, this kid is special. And you could see it right away with CJ. And so I'm happy for you guys. That's awesome. And back to the Jets. Look, like I said, not absolved completely as Nathaniel Hackett, but he's not been as bad as some people want to make him out to be. At the end of the day, there's zero quarterback. I think if this team has Mike White, they're 6-6 right now. There's other options that they could have had that they just don't have. I think if they had Joe Flacco, they could be 5-7, 6-6. I'm not saying this team would be, again, 8-4. If they had Rodgers, they probably would be. But at the same time, Aaron Rodgers said himself, like, there's a lot of stuff that's not in this offense that I do in this offense. And so when you have something like that, there's not really a whole lot you can do. You can't, it's hard to overcome that when it's so reliant on one guy. And then the question becomes, should you have been so reliant on that one guy? And when the guy is Aaron Rodgers, who's a Hall of Famer, the answer is probably yes. Like, if you look at me and say, knowing what you know, go back to August 30th and do it all again. Do you do it the exact same way? I would say 100% I would do it the exact same way, because he's Aaron Rodgers. This is why you brought him in. This is why you brought Lazard in. This is why you brought Cobb in. This is why you brought all these guys in. I would do it again, even knowing how it plays out. It's like asking a Nets fan, like, would you go get Kyrie and KD and James Harden again? Of course they would, because he had Kevin Durant's shoe was a half a shoe size too big. Otherwise, you beat Milwaukee in that series. So again, you can always play the results. It's so easy to play the results, but go back in time and look at it from a sense of where you, and by the way, that's what the Jets are going to do. They're going to go into next year and be like, we're going to run it back. We're going to trust that we made the right move by bringing in a Hall of Fame quarterback who's one of one, special talent, and see if it works this time. Who knows what that'll be like coming off an Achilles tear? I don't know at 40 years old, but I still think the move was the right move. And so we'll probably see them running it back. And I'm not sure that's a mistake.
I would like to see it. One more for me. What do you think will be a key for the Jets offense to get it going against this Houston Texans defense? We're feeling quite confident. Last week, our secondary finally played a game together, starting secondary, Jimmy Ward, Jalen Petrie, Derek Stingley, and Steven Nelson. But what do you think the Jets need to do to try to move the ball and find some success against the Houston Texans defense?
Well, just this is interesting. This was just put out. So Brett Rippon was not only signed to the he was signed to the active roster. So he's going to be active, I assume, on Sunday. So I just saw that. But so it's not like he's going to the practice squad. He's right away. All right, he's here. You know, I think they have to activate him Sunday. To answer your question about the Jets offense, hit open receivers. I mean, that take shots and hit open receivers. I think the Texans are going to do the exact same thing. Put 8 guys in the box and say, beat us. 8 guys in the box, one-on-one with Garrett, have someone shadow him, and then say, all right, Jets, throw it. Can one of these 3 guys, Brett Rippon, Zach Wilson, or Trevor Siemian, or hell, Aaron Rodgers in a boot, I don't care. Can one, even if, you know what, Dalvin Cook, he wants more snaps, play him at quarterback. Can one of these freaking guys hit an open receiver, or at least attempt to throw it to an open receiver when a guy's running open, wide open, 50 yards downfield. That's the key for the Jets. Can they take those shots when they're there and make them? Because, like I said, if the Jets score, I think obviously, look, CJ Stroud and the Texans offense, even without Tank Dell, is a much better offense than the Falcons offense. But if the Jets score 2 touchdowns in this game, I like their chances of winning. But they haven't scored 2 touchdowns in 3 months. I don't know. Like, it's crazy.
Damn.
Hey, man, I got to say it. Ruben knows where I'm going with this. Derek Stingley's better than Sauce Gardner.
Again, it's not true. I understand that people like to hate on Sauce this year. It's just not true. Sauce is a special talent, and I know there's been like this national "we hate Sauce" conversation going on this year. Watch the coaches film from the game against the Falcons. Insane. This guy is special. I mean, Drake London had, I think, 1 catch in the game. This guy is shutting him down the entire game. I think the catch, by the way, was on DJ Reed. Like, that's how crazy. This guy is crazy. He's incredible. So I don't think that's true. I love, again, it's not true. Still not true. I love Sauce. I think he fell off from last year. People are saying last year he was the number 1 corner in the league as a rookie. This year he's the 4th best corner in the league. You know what I mean? Okay, so he's the 4th best corner in the league this year. I'm so sorry he's fallen off. No, it happens. Guys take a lot of times in their second year. The league adjusts to them a little bit, and he'll get right back. And he played one of his best games of the season, I thought, on Sunday. The guy, by the way, put up the question. I see it here. If you guys don't, does Amos give some insight into the offense? Asked and answered. So yes, I do think that's why they brought him in. And I think it's a very smart move by the Texans to bring him in.
Mr. Ramy, we want to thank you for coming on and talking to us about this Jets team. You have Harley shouting out.
I can't see. Is that what is that? Is he holding up a sign of what pitch is coming, or how's that work? What
it says we want Houston. When y'all cried and asked for us, and we whooped y'all's ass, swept y'all. Oh, okay.
Look, I'm with you. But whatever. We could go for another 45 minutes if we want to talk Yankees. I'm telling you.
Is Altuve a legit villain in New York?
I don't even know. Like, I respect him at this point. Like the way Boston fans should respect Derek Jeter. Like, Derek Jeter owned you for 20 years. Like, how could you be a villain? You owned us. Like, I think I'm the only Yankee fan who has this opinion, by the way. I don't even think it's a rivalry. How could you call it a rivalry when one team's consistently winning and the other team's consistently losing? The Yankees have consistently, like you said, since 2015, you said this before we got on, the Yankees have consistently lost the Astros since 2015. How could you possibly say it's a rivalry? It's not. The Astros have owned the Yankees.
God bless.
Mr. Ramy, where can us Houston Texans fans find all of your work?
So that's a lot of places, loaded question. But I host a podcast called the Ramy Lavi podcast, which is on the Odyssey network. Obviously, WFAN, which is the biggest sports radio station, I think, in the world. I love working there. It's fantastic. I actually do produce the Yankees for them sometimes. So that's fun. Get to work with John Sterling and Susan Wallman in the radio booth. So that's really fun. And obviously, of course, on the Belief Network, In Flight Snack is the name of the podcast. It's named after Rex Ryan, former head coach, and the guy who drafted Bilal Powell. So Bilal Powell, former Jets running back, 9-year Jets running back, is my co-host. Awesome guy. And we have so much fun every week, even though the Jets have been struggling. We talk about everything. We don't just talk about the Jets. We talk about his career. We talk about different stories that have come up, some really fun stuff. So check it out. We talk about broadcasting. We've had some people on. Hopefully we'll have Kenny Albert on soon. We just had his producer, Fran Morrison, last week. Obviously, like I mentioned, we had Quinnen Williams on and some of his other Quincy Nunwa, some of the other Bilal Powell, I guess, teammates, including we should eventually have a former Texan and Ryan Fitzpatrick on also. So we should get it. We should get everyone on. So it's going to be fun. It's going to continue to be fun. Yeah. So follow along.
Bro, them not making the playoffs that year.
You know how many times we talked about 2015 on and off the air? It was like the first question I asked Bilal. I was like, dude, like he called me like the first time we met. And I was like, dude, can I ask this? I don't want to be rude. What the fuck happened in 2015? Like, just like seriously, week 16 or week 17, you go up to Buffalo and you lose to Rex the way you did. And I'm like, what happened? Right. So, Yeah, we've talked about it a lot, but I'm sure if once we have Fitz, we'll probably have Fitz after the season's over and he's done with Thursday Night Football. But we had a Nunwa. We'll have a bunch of those guys. B. Marsh, Brandon Marshall from the 15 season. We'll talk about all that stuff. Obviously, Bilal's still close with a lot of those guys, and I get to see some of those inside relationships because a lot of those guys still are back in the media, back working with the Jets. So I get to go see them at games sometimes. Like I said, a season ticket holder. So I'll hopefully be at the game. If not, if you guys are looking to buy tickets, if I decide I can't make it on Sunday, hit me up at Rami Lavi, at Rami _ Lavi, RAMILAVI on Twitter or X. And you can, if you're looking for tickets to this week's Jets Texans game, hit me up and we'll talk about that. Do you guys need a score prediction? I see a score prediction here.
If you
Go
want,
ahead, give us a score prediction.
I'll go 24-9 Texans.
Wow. The first guests predict against their team.
Am I really?
Yes.
You guys are having a
Yes.
bunch of homers on. What's wrong with you? Me and Bilal pick against the Jets every week.
Just no one believes in us, man. And it's been that way all year. And, you know, rightfully so.
No.
Only 7 wins combined in the last 2 years.
Panthers,
and
guys.
oh, dude, the Panthers, we were talking
talked a lot of crap.
we were
you
talking
guys,
some
you guys are the
trash.
perfect place to be. I'm so jealous of you because the year before the year is always more fun. Like I don't think they're competing for a Super Bowl this year, the Texans. But the year before, when it's unexpected, when you're the fun team, kind of like the Yankees in 17. I know we ran into a Houston team that was cheating, but before then, like that was the year where the Yankees weren't supposed to compete in 17, and all of a sudden they come out of nowhere. They win the wild card round. Obviously, they win the wild card game. Then they go and they win in Cleveland in 5 games after being down 2-0, and then they take Houston to 7. That's more fun than the following years when you're expecting it. So
what was that again?
what was that?
They went. They did what?
They
lost
ran
to
into
Houston. It's Houston.
They lost in
okay.
Houston in
27 straight curveballs, right?
Yes, yeah, that's exactly what happened. They couldn't hit there. It's actually funny because the Astros really couldn't hit in Houston that series either. Like again, like they didn't hit that much. Like you talk about, they knew the pitches were coming, sure, and I know it's a big advantage, and they cheated, and like the punishments should be way more. I mean, Rob Manfred's a joke, calling it a piece of metal. Like again, and I said this before we were on the Astros. I have so much respect for the Astros because they came back and they did it again. They turned over the roster multiple times and they did it again. And then in 22, when they won, like that solidified everything. And I don't care. A lot of people are like, oh, you have to win at least back-to-back championships to be a dynasty. The Houston Astros is one of the best dynasties of recent memory in sports. Like, okay, I'm a Yankee fan and I'm saying that. You know, I work for the Yankees and I'm saying that. So I don't know what to tell you. But if Yankee fans disagree with me, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I love the Yankees. They're not the Yankees I grew up with. Obviously, you know, I grew up first few years of my life. I was very little, but I somewhat remember what it was like to be a Yankee fan when it was a right to win a championship. We were entitled to it. But it's not the same anymore, and that's okay. I got my Knicks and Rangers right now, keeping me going. You know, we have the in-season tournament tonight. I don't even know how I got off on this tangent, honestly. But yeah.
Hey man, we
the
love
year
sports,
before the
man.
year is what I was saying about the Astros. The year before the year is the year that's special. So I think this year for you guys, enjoy it, because next year you're going to come in with high expectations, and it's going to be, is it us? Or is it Will Levis? Or is it the Jags in the division? Like, who's going to be the team in the division, right? And obviously Indianapolis with a healthy Anthony Richardson. Look what they've been able to do even without Anthony Richardson and Shane Steichen, what he's done over there. It's a really fun division that's been like the joke of the NFL for a couple of decades is now going to be one of the most fun divisions in the NFL, in my opinion, in that AFC South, right? Like, think about those 4 teams and young, talented, fun teams. I think the Titans are a little bit on the lower end of that. I don't think Will Levis is as good. Obviously, Derrick Henry is kind of out the window, and who knows what happens, obviously, if the head coach ends up going to New England and all that stuff. So, but between you guys and the Jags, who I think still, like, even, like, they're going to choke every big game. I know last night, like, Lawrence got hurt, but by the time he got hurt, it should have been 40-0 when he got hurt. Like, how do you let that happen? Jake Browning? Now, that's another thing about the Jets. Jake Browning goes out there. He's a backup quarterback, and he goes out there and he's tearing it up. The Jets can't find one guy on their roster to do that. They've played 4 so far this year. They're going to play a 5th this weekend, and they can't find one guy to even look close to Jake Browning. I digress. You guys are going to have fun for a long time, but next year it's going to be tough. There's going to be expectations. Enjoy the rest of this season, and what CJ's done is special. He should go win the Rookie of the Year. I'm rooting for him. I want to go see him on Sunday because he's going to be fun to watch. I still have a bunch of tickets, even if I do go. So, hit me up for tickets. I love seeing. I root for greatness. I root for good athletes, and so you guys asked me about Jose Altuve before. I root for greatness. I don't find myself hating on players who are great. I don't hate LeBron. I don't hate guys that generally people hate on. I don't like to hate on them because I think if you're truly a great athlete, like we should just appreciate it and enjoy watching it. So I feel that way about CJ. I don't think the Jets are going to win on Sunday, but I can't wait to watch CJ ball, especially against a tougher defense in the Jets defense. I'd like to see what he does.
Harley, before we go, score prediction.
Way too early score prediction. Sure, why not? We're playing the Jets. I mean, I'm expecting a blowout from the Houston Texans. Maybe towards the second half they just start pulling away because they're the better team. But I'm looking along the lines of like 23 to maybe 12. I mean, I don't expect a touchdown from the Jets. I expect field goals. If anyone has Greg Zuerlein, the kicker, right?
Greg the leg, baby. Legatron.
Pick them up in fantasy. If you don't got them, hit the overs on them. I would definitely expect that. So I'll go, like I said, 23-12.
I'm going to go 21-9 Houston Texans. Guys, thank you for being a part of today's episode, brought to you by Bet Online. Believe in the Houston Texans.